Richard O'Donoghue.
Thank you, Councillor. Minister, to ask you the impact on the proposed speed limit reductions will have on transport network, and that's also on goods networks and our bus networks. What is the impact of the speed reductions? Thank you.
Deputy O'Donoghue, a key objective of the speed limit review was to align speed limits with the safe system approach to manage safety on the road network. The safe system approach is a means of managing and developing the road network so that it is forgiving of human error and mitigates serious collisions by design. In response to the upward trend in road deaths in recent years, we sought government approval to publish the road traffic bill in December, with the bill subsequently published on the 25th of January and due to come before the House in the next couple of weeks. It is a concise bill focused on addressing key road safety issues, and I aim to pass it into law as soon as possible. The bill will implement core recommendations of the speed limit review with regard to safer default limits. The default limits on national secondary roads will be reduced from 100 to 80 km per hour, on local rural roads from 80 to 60, and on roads in highly urbanised areas from 50 to 30 km per hour. Reducing speed has been fundamentally proven to significantly reduce the risk of death or serious injury in road collisions. The World Health Organization has estimated that a 5% reduction in average speed could result in a 30% reduction in fatal collisions. Furthermore, the evidence shows that 50% of pedestrians struck by a vehicle travelling at 60 km per hour will be killed, compared to 29% of pedestrians struck by a vehicle travelling at 50 km per hour and 5% of pedestrians struck by a vehicle travelling at 30 km per hour. In addition to the bill, my department has commenced work on updating the guidelines for managing speed limits in Ireland. The update will seek to address matters relating to the default speed limits in support of the bill, and although transition arrangements will be required, there is significant work underway in relation to the ongoing process for the local authority reviews and make sure that the process will be consistent following the publication of the guidance. And just to say as well, the motorway system, it's proposed to leave that at 120 km per hour, national primary roads at 100 km per hour and regional roads at 80 km per hour. So the speed limit review leaves those speed limits as they are, and it's the other speed limits that I've referenced where there are proposed changes.
Thank you, Minister. And it was just a clarification that we wanted on that, because what we were hearing was fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And in the networks that we have at the moment, it was shown that it was going to be a blanket ban, and this is what was going out around the country, that it was going to be a blanket ban, which would have meant that we would have to increase our bus services, put extra buses on the road, because the buses could not make their targets. And trucks on the road, they're all down to a digicar system. They're only allowed to drive so many hours a day. And if they can't make their areas, and I'm 100% speed does kill, but I'm also looking for the facts on the areas that are shown where there's accident black spots, where people have been killed and seriously injured. And look at the real facts on areas. We have seen that people have been knocked down in the streets with vehicles only doing 5 and 6 kilometres an hour. But we've seen that, but that is not speed. But we just want to make sure that we get it right first time, and we make sure that we're not adding extra vehicles to the roads that have actually got no accidents and no speeding recorded on them. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And what I would say is like a lot of the HGVs and the logistics network use the motorway system, the national primary roads, and as I've said, they're remaining as they are because they have a higher engineering standard compared to some of the other roads. And also, like in highly urbanised areas, I think it is important to have a lower baseline in villages and towns where the schools and where vulnerable road users are at risk, and where we've seen, I think, over 43 pedestrians killed last year. And speed, unfortunately, was a factor in many of those instances. We also have to invest in concerns around junctions and other accident black spots that you've mentioned, and there's a work programme on that with Transport Infrastructure Ireland. So what will happen is the legislation, we hope, hopefully we'll get your support for that will be enacted in the next number of weeks. And then the process will be, guidance will be issued to local authorities to then conduct speed limit reviews, and then local authorities will essentially assess each road on what the appropriate speed limit is in the context of the guidance that's issued, and that's how the process will evolve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, in the areas of towns and villages that don't have policing services and the amount of complaints that are coming in around this country that speeding goes through, even if the speeding indicators put up, it doesn't work. What is your view on speed ramps on areas in towns and villages that do not have a policing presence? It works. I see in a lot of towns and villages where they've introduced them, they're working. They're slowing the traffic down in the streets. They have a complete impact. And the one thing is they police themselves. They don't need anything to monitor them because you hit a speed ramp, you slow down. They should be introduced in every town and village around the country where there is no police presence there. And it will save lives, and it will slow traffic down, and it doesn't cost the state to police it. They police themselves.
Well, thanks very much. As I said, I know there's guidance given to engineers on traffic calming measures. I know we're all constituency TDs, and I certainly support many of the traffic calming interventions in urbanised areas, particularly around schools or in villages and towns. But in addition to that, where you've an inappropriate speed limit itself, that sets the context for motorists that are travelling through a village or town. And that's why we have to set a lower default speed limit to slow the traffic and protect vulnerable road users. On the wider point, and I mentioned to others earlier on, there is a need to improve enforcement and policing across the country, and that's a key priority for our own engagement with An Garda Síochána, and that's something that is a top priority in our collective engagement to make sure that there's and as I've said, I support traffic calming measures in towns and villages, and that's obviously a local authority function to implement appropriate traffic calming measures, in addition to changing the default speed limit in urbanised environments.